Hello, and welcome to The Artist and the Storyteller. I'm the storyteller, and today I'll tell you a story about a little princess who lost her crown. While I tell the story, the artist will illustrate a scene from the story. The story is told in such a manner that you can choose to follow along and see the scene unfold, or listen to the story as if this was an audiobook. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you want to get notified when we post the next video, then click the bell icon. We post a new video every week. A short disclaimer. This story is an old tale from Brothers Grimm and can, by a younger audience, be a bit violent. The story is told the old way, so if you are sensitive to stories about death or are young of age, please skip this video. The Goose Girl by Brothers Grimm. There was once upon a time an old queen whose husband had been dead for years, and she had a beautiful daughter. When the princess grew up, she was betrothed to a prince who lived quite far away. When the time came for her to be married, she had to journey to meet her prince in the distant kingdom. The old queen packed up many expensive vessels and trinkets of silver and gold and jewels of all colors. In short, everything which would be appropriate as a royal dowry, for she loved her child with all of her heart. She also sent her maid-in-waiting, who was to ride with her, and hand over her daughter to the bridegroom. Each had a horse for the journey, for the horse of the princess was called Falada and could speak. So when it was time to say goodbye, the old mother went into her bedroom, took a small knife and cut her finger with it until it bled. Then she held a white handkerchief to it, into which she let 3 drops of blood fall. She then gave it to her daughter and said, "Dear child, take good care of this, it will be of service to you on your way." Then they took a sorrowful goodbye. The princess put the piece of cloth in her bosom, mounted her horse, and then went away to her bridegroom. After she had ridden for a while, she felt a burning thirst and said to her waiting maid, "Dismount and take my cup. Please get me some water from the stream, for I would like to have a drink." "If you are thirsty," said the waiting maid, "get off your horse yourself, lie down and drink out of the water. I did not choose to be your servant." So in her great thirst, the princess did as the maid said, bent down over the water in the stream and drank. She was now allowed to drink out of the golden cup which had been brought for her. Then she said, "Ah, heaven!" and the 3 drops of blood answered, "If this your mother knew, her heart would break in 2. But the king's daughter was humble, said nothing, and mounted her horse again. She rode some miles further, but the day was warm and the sun scorched her, and she was thirsty once more. When they came to another stream of water, she again cried to her waiting maid, "Dismount and bring me some water in my golden cup," for she had long ago forgotten the girl's ill words. But the waiting maid said still more angry, "If you wish to drink, get it yourself. I did not choose to be your maid." Then in her great thirst, the king's daughter listened, bent over the flowing stream, wept and said, "Ah, heaven!" and the drops of blood again replied, "If this your mother knew, her heart would break in 2. And as she was drinking and leaning right over the stream, the handkerchief with the 3 drops of blood fell out of her bosom and floated away with the water. She didn't even notice this or the trouble that she was in. The waiting maid, however, had seen it, and she rejoiced to think that she now had power over the bride, for since the princess had lost the drops of blood, she had become weak and powerless. So now, when the princess wanted to mount her horse again, the waiting maid said, "Falada is more suitable for me, and my old nag will do for you." Because of the princess' weakness, she just had to be content with that. Then the waiting maid, with many hard words, demanded the princess to give the maid her royal apparel and to put on the maid's shabby clothes. While this exchange happened, the maid forced her to swear by the clear sky above her that she would not say one word of this to anyone at the royal court. If she had declined, she would have been killed on the spot. Meanwhile, Falada saw all this and observed it well. The waiting maid now mounted Falada, and the true bride mounted the old horse, and they continued their travel onwards, until they entered the royal palace. There were a great rejoicing over her arrival, and the prince sprang forward to meet his bride. He lifted the waiting maid off her horse and thought she was his bride-to-be. She was led upstairs, while the real princess was left standing below. Then the old king looked out of the window and saw the princess standing in the courtyard, and noticed how dainty and delicate and beautiful she was. He instantly went to the royal apartment and asked the maid about the girl who was standing down below in the courtyard and who she was. "I picked her up on my way for a companion. Give the girl some work so that she'll not become lazy." But the king had no work for her and knew of none, so he said, "I have a boy who tends the geese. She may help him." The boy was called Conrad, and the true bride had to help him tend the geese. Soon afterwards, false prince said to the young king, "Dearest husband, I beg you to do me a favor." He answered, "Please, my bride, I'll do your bidding. Send for the knacker, and I have the head of the horse on which I rode here cut off, but caused me great difficulty on the way." In reality, she was afraid that the horse might tell how she had behaved to the king's daughter. She then succeeded in making the prince promise that it should be done, and the faithful Falada was to die. This came to ears of the real princess, and she secretly promised to pay the knacker a piece of gold if he would perform a small service for her. There was a great dark-looking gateway in town, through which morning and evening she had to pass with the geese. If he would be so good as to nail up Falada's head on it, so that she might be able to see him again more than once. The knacker promised to do that, cut off the head and nailed it fast beneath the dark gateway. Early in the morning, when she and Conrad drove out the flock beneath this gateway, she said in passing, "Alas, Falada, hanging there." Then the head answered, "Alas, young queen, how ill you fare. If this your mother knew, her heart would break in two." Then they went still further out of town and drove the geese into the country. When they had come to the meadow, she sat down and unbound her hair, which was like pure gold, and Conrad saw it and delighted in its brightness and wanted to pluck out a few hairs. Then she said, "Blow, blow, thou gentle wind, I say, blow Conrad's little hat away, and make him chase it here and there, until I have braided all my hair and bound it up again." And there came such a violent wind that it blew Conrad's hat far across the land, and he was forced to run after it. When he came back, she had finished combing her hair and was putting it up again, and he could not get any of it. Conrad was angry at this and would not speak to her, and thus they watched the geese silently until the evening, and then they went home. Next day, when they were driving the geese out through the dark gateway, the true bride said, "Alas, Falada, hanging there." Falada answered, "Alas, young queen, how ill you fare. If this your mother knew, her heart would break in two." And she sat down again in the field and began to comb her hair. Again Conrad ran and tried to pull some hair out, so she said in haste, "Blow, blow, thou gentle wind, I say, blow Conrad's little hat away, and make him chase it here and there, until I have braided all my hair and bound it up again." Then the wind blew and blew the hat off his head, and Conrad was forced to run after it. When he came back, her hair had been up a long time, and he could get none of it, and so they looked after the geese till evening came. But in the evening, after they had got home, Conrad went to the old king and said, "I won't tend the geese with that girl any longer." "Why not?" inquired the king. "Oh, because she causes me great difficulty the whole day." The old king then commanded him to explain what it was that she did to him. "In the morning, when we pass beneath the dark gateway, there's a horse head on the walls, and she says to it, 'Alas, Falada, hanging there.' And the head answers, 'Alas, young queen, how ill you fare. If your mother knew, her heart would break in two.'" And Conrad went on to relate what happened on the goose pasture, and how, when there, he had to chase his hat. The king commanded him to drive his flock out again next day, and as soon as morning came, he placed himself behind the dark gateway, and heard how the maiden spoke to the head of Falada. He then followed the youngsters into the country, and hid himself in the tall grass of the meadow. There he saw, with his own two eyes, Goose Girl and the Goose Boy, bringing their flock, and how after a while she sat down and unplaited her hair, which shone with radiance. Shortly after her hair was let down, she said, "Blow, blow, thou gentle wind, I say, blow Conrad's little head away, and make him chase it here and there, until I've braided all my hair, and bound it up again." Then came a blast of wind, and carried off Conrad's head, so that he had to run far away, while the girl quietly could comb and plait her hair. All of which the king observed. Then quite unseen he went away, and when the Goose Girl came home in the evening, he called her aside and asked why she did all these things. "I cannot tell you that. I do not dare to tell my sorrows to any human being, for I have sworn not to do so by the heaven which is above me. If I had not given this oath, I would have lost my life." He urged her, and left her no peace, but he could draw nothing away from her. Then he said, "If you will not tell me anything, tell your sorrows to the iron stove there." And he went away. Then she crept into the iron stove and began to weep and cry. She emptied her whole heart out and said, "Here I am, deserted by the whole world, and yet I am a king's daughter, and a false bride has by force brought me to my knees, so that I had to take off my royal apparel, that she could take my place with my bridegroom. And all while she is taken care of, I have to perform a menial service as a goose girl. If this my mother knew, her heart would break in two." While the princess was pouring out her heart to the iron stove, the old king was standing outside and was listening to what she said. He bade her come out of the stove. Royal garments were placed on her, and it was marvelous how beautiful she was. The king summoned his son and revealed to him that he had got the false bride was only a waiting maid, but that the true one was standing there as the former goose girl. The young king was in awe with all of his heart when he saw her beauty and youth, and a great feast was made ready to which all the people and all good friends were invited. At the head of the table sat the bridegroom with the king's daughter at one side of him and the waiting maid on the other. The waiting maid did not see the princess because she was blinded by all the riches, and did not recognize the princess in her dazzling array. When they had eaten and drunk and were merry, the old king told the waiting maid a story, and while relating to the princess' story, asked what punishment a person deserved who had behaved in such a way to her master. Then the false bride said, "She deserved no better fate than to be stripped entirely naked and put in a barrel which is studded inside with pointed nails. 2 white horses should be harnessed to it, which will drag her along through one street after another till she's dead." "This fate shall happen to you," said the king. "You have pronounced your own sentence, based on your own story, and therefore this will be done to you." When the sentence had been carried out, the young king married his true bride, and both of them reigned over their kingdom in peace and happiness. Thank you so much for watching or listening to our video. We really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.